Alright, welcome back to a new TouchDesigner tutorial. And in this one we're going to look at 2D collision detection, which basically means that we have different objects. For example, I have this polygon and a circle, and I have this triangle that I can move around with my mouse. And we want to check whether one is over the other, pretty much. So we have sort of a background layer and a front layer, and we want to check, is this over the other or not? And then we can do whatever we want with that value, so or that statement, yes or no. So in this case, if I move over here, the background turns blue. And same here, so this works very nicely. And the same with any input really, so we can also use this banana. If I'm hovering over it, then again, the background turns blue. So this is quite the simple setup. What's mostly interesting here is this base, and we're gonna make like a little custom reusable base. And yeah, one thing you have to like make sure of is that your background and your collision object both have alpha. That's sort of what we're working with, the alpha channel. Okay, I'm going to just delete everything as usual, and we're gonna start with a circle. So we're going to build like our first background layer, and I'm going to set its resolution to 1280 by 720 in this case. Let's just go down with the radius to 0.1 and 0.1, and let's move this over by minus 0.2 and minus 0.1, and let's just copy and paste this. Let's change this to polygon and change the sides to 5. And on here, let's just get rid of the both of the minus symbols, so we're moving to the top right. Let's also change the color to like a nice soft violet. And what we also want to do is go to output, change the comp with output to on, and now we have both circles in one top. Let's by pressing Alt N, let's add a null and call this background objects. And let's make this like orange by pressing C and selecting the color. And so just so we know, this is sort of important. And from here, I'm going to add a circle. I can also just add a circle like this, but we want to make sure that this circle always has the same resolution as whatever input we have in here. So we can just do that by putting this input into here. Let's change the radius down to 0.03. Oops, on both axes, and let's change the fill color to like a bright pink, and the polygon again to on, so we have like a little triangle. Let's also call this collision object and turn the color to like a pink. All right, I'm gonna add a null from here again by pressing Alt N. And I'm gonna change the name to BG. What we wanna do now is zoom back out here, go to our project 1 container, which I called 2D collision detection, and go to look background top, change it to ./BG, or whatever you called your last null. Then on the perform, I changed the cursor visible and set that to never, so we don't see our cursor on here. I might want to change this for now, and I'm just gonna right click on here and say view. So now what we want to do is we want to position the triangle wherever our mouse is. So we can use this do this using a panel chop. So I'm just going to drop that in here and select roll U and roll V, and now as you can see, we have nice normalized values between 0 and 1 wherever our mouse is on the panel here. So we can use a math to remap this, because if we have a look at our collision object, our center, we want to change that to a value between 0.5 minus 0.5 and plus 0.5. There we go. And so let's just remap this here to those values and add a null and use these values on the center. Cool, so now if I move my mouse around, the triangle is wherever my mouse is, and I can again go here to the perform window, comp, and change this to never. Now we just, right, we need to go into perform mode, and now we don't see the cursor anymore, but I still want to have this here. Okay, so before we actually get to the collision part, let's add a comp here, composite, and let's just drag this down here and change this to over. So now we have both our like background and the collision object on top of it. So make sure it's the first input, the collision object. Cool. So from here, I'm going to add a null and right click anywhere and collapse selected. So we're going to change this to collision detection and make it very big and like change the color to red, because this is what we're really going to work with. This is the important part. So let's go in here, get rid of the null and copy and paste the in. And we're going to call the first one background objects. Nope. Objects. And the second one collision objects. So now if we move back here, also I'm gonna give these colors actually. I'm just gonna make this like blue and pink. And so if we go back here, we can actually see they have sort of these colors. And also if we hover over them, we can see the names. So this is really useful to name to name your ins, because then you're always gonna know what these are here. So I'm gonna put the background in there. Might want to make that blue to correspond with the color here, and then I'm going to put that in the second, like the collision input in the second input, collision object in the second input. Okay, so now we have our two layers in here. What we want to do now is combine them, like composite them, and then analyze it. So I'm going to explain what's happening after I've done it. So we're going to add a composite here. And so what you can see now is that we have an empty canvas, sort of. So multiply, of course, like, you know, if we hover over here where there's nothing, it's just going to be 0, because 0 times 1 is 0. So if we hover over here, you're going to see we now see our triangle. So wherever wherever these collide, the triangle or whatever collision object you have is going to be shown. So this is already sort of a detection, you know. Now it's there, now it's not. So all we need to do now is add an analyze top, change the mask to alpha, and now you can see we get a nice on and off value. I'm going to add a null from here, and from here a top to chop, and we're going to see these values aren't really 0 and 1, and we want to have a yes or no, so a 0 or 1 at the end. So let's just go ahead and add a limit top in between here, and go to quantize, change this to ceiling, and change this to 1, the value step to 1. So now we just get a value between 0 and 1. Let's go to our top 2. Let's get rid of the RGB. We just need the alpha value here. You might want to call this, like rename this to collision. And just add, not a null actually, but an out chop. And yeah, I wanted to explain what's happening here. So if we analyze this now, of course, it just takes an average of all this after all the pixels here. So they're all 0, so an average is going to be 0. And now when we're colliding, when we're multiplying here, it changes from 0 to any other value, really. So it's not going to be 0 anymore. So we just we get some random numbers here, but if we use a limit, then we can just change it. Okay, so it's 0, no. If it's any other value, it's going to be 1 at the output here, because we're using ceiling. All right, I hope that makes sense. Let's go back here. Let's add a null here. And now we can see when I'm colliding, we get a 0 or a 1, like so a 1 when I'm colliding. So let's go ahead and add a transform here. Change the alpha of the background color to 1 and change this to on. And let's just use this on the blue channel. So let's channel here, chop reference, and now as you can see, if I hover over it, it turns blue. And I'm just gonna multiply this by like 0.4, so it's not as strong, just looks a bit nicer. And yeah, you can really do anything with this channel. Of course, this is just one way to display the collision. You could also use a chop execute on here, so run a Python script when this is colliding. So you can build like a sort of a game, stuff like that. There's really endless possibilities with that. You can of course use different inputs, so we can use a movie file in top and put that in here. And now if I'm colliding with the banana, you can see the background turns blue again. And you can really use anything here. As I said in the beginning, it always needs to have an alpha background. And the compositing and changing the background is happening here later on. Okay, one thing we might want to do here, you could already go ahead and just drag this into your palette under My Components and then make a folder. But one thing that might be cool to do here is to make a lag, so to sort of smooth out the channel. So I'm gonna just add a lag here and make this extreme so you can see what I mean. And let's go into perform mode, and if I hover over, you can see the background is slowly turning blue. So it's not instantly turning blue. If I bypass the lag, you can see it instantly turns blue, and this way we're sort of like smoothing that out. And just for future like easy use of the component, we can just add a switch here and add this in here, change the order, and now we can go ahead and right click on our collision detection, customize the component, add a page. And for the first one, let's use a toggle here, and let's just call this smooth, add the parameter, and just add a float, which we're going to call smooth amount. Smooth amount, add that parameter. And now we can right click on here, parameters, go to parameters, and right click on the smooth, copy the parameter, pass the reference here, and right click on here, copy the parameter, and paste the reference here. So now we can turn the switch like on and off, so like the lag on and off. And so if I just go ahead and view this again, I can now turn smooth on and then change the value to like 0.5 again. Then you can see it smooths that out. If I turn it off, there's no smooth. So now you can go ahead and drag it as it is into the into here, and then you can I already did that. In the future you can just reuse it. Cool. So that's really it. I am planning, or I'm already started making like a little jump and run game, or any sort of game with this. It's I think that's a nice way to use this. And yeah, feel free to use this in any other way. And if you want to support me, or if you want to have more videos and more files and more fun, come to my Patreon and or become a patron. And yeah, thanks a lot for watching, and I see you on the next video.